Friendship in Any Language, written by Jacqueline Goss. Tony prepared for his first day of the new school year with great excitement. During breakfast, he thought about his friends. He had become too anxious to wait for the school bus. Nervously, he asked, "Daddy, can you drop me off at school?" "Of course, son. Come on," said his dad, Bernard. Tony arrived early at school and was thrilled that he would be there to greet his friends. He walked past a father and son who were speaking a different language. Kamis spoke to his father in Arabic. He was a little scared because he would be going to school in America, and he would miss all his family and friends in the United Arab Emirates. Kamis's eyes began to fill with tears. He was afraid he wouldn't make friends. Hamid, his dad, wiped a tear from his son's cheek. Hamid sent his son off with a word of encouragement. As Kamis entered the building, he smiled at Tony, who was grinning. Suddenly, the door swung open and students began to pour into the building. Tony rushed past Kamis to greet his friend. Kamis thought making friends would be even harder because everyone already had friends. Tony looked back at Kamis, who stood alone in the hallway. He thought he should talk to him. Just as he was about to walk over to Kamis, the bell rang and everyone headed to class. Once in the classroom, the students hardly heard the knocking over their chatter. Dr. Vincent, the principal, let himself into the room and Kamis followed behind him. Tony nudged his friend David and told him, "That's the kid I was talking about earlier." The principal introduced Kamis as a new student from Abu Dhabi. Their teacher sat Kamis in an empty desk beside Fiona. Kamis, still unsure of how he would make friends, noticed his classmates staring at him. During lunch, the students talked more than they ate. However, everyone couldn't help but notice what Kamis had for lunch. It looked like an egg roll, but it was made out of a leaf. When he bit into it, rice was inside. "Ew!" one of the students said as she made a face. Tony knew this was his chance to be friendly. He asked if he could taste one of the leaf rolls. Kamis offered him one and said, "It's called mehshi." Tony was amazed at how delicious it tasted. "Wow, this is good!" exclaimed Tony. That was the beginning of a new friendship. The next day, Tony grabbed his soccer ball as they lined up for PE. Kamis thought he would surely make more friends because he knew he was a good football player. "You play football?" Tony heard Kamis ask. But before he could reply, Miss Ross gave them the "don't talk in line" look. On the way to the field, Tony overheard David tell Kamis, "It's called soccer, not football." Kamis didn't care what the sport was called. He just wanted to play. Once they reached the field, the PE teacher placed them on teams. Tony yelled to his teammates, "Do you have what it takes to win this game? Do you have the juice?" Not knowing what Tony meant, Kamis yelled out, "Yes, I have the juice." In the center of the field, Tony and Kamis centered up for kickoff. The game began, and Tony kicked the ball past Kamis to his teammate Marcus. As the defense surrounded Marcus, he attempted to pass to Morgan. Out of nowhere, Kamis intercepted the pass and headed down the field in the other direction. Tony cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted, "He's got the juice! Get him!" Kamis kicked the ball with all his might towards his teammates, but it rolled out of bounds. Luca went out and threw the ball to Tony. Kamis defended Tony down the field until Kamis was able to steal the ball and break away. He drove the ball towards the goal. Fiona readied herself as she saw Kamis approaching. Before he could go for the goal, the PE teacher blew the whistle, and the game was over. "Aw, man!" yelled Kamis's teammates as they threw their hands up in the air, knowing they were seconds away from scoring. Kamis picked up the ball, and everyone ran to be the first in line. Kamis handed Tony his ball. "Good game," all the kids said to Kamis as they patted him on the back. Kamis smiled and replied, "Insha'Allah, we can play again." Tony looked at him and replied, "Insha'Allah." He didn't know the true meaning of the word, but he understood at the same time. They both giggled and walked back to class. At the end of the day, Tony lined up with his classmates. Before they got on the bus, Kamis handed Tony a bottle of juice. Tony looked confused. Kamis noticed his confusion and clarified, "Remember when you asked about the juice before the game? Well, this is it." Tony realized that Kamis didn't understand. He was asking, "Are you a good soccer player?" He gladly took the juice and asked, "How do you say thank you in Arabic?" "Shukran," Kamis said, smiling. Eager to have learned an Arabic word, Tony enthusiastically said, "Shukran." "Afwan," Kamis replied. As Tony rode the bus home that afternoon, he thought about his new friend and all the things they would learn from each other. Later that month, their teacher gave them a group assignment to create a project on a country they would like to visit. David, Fiona, Kamis, and Tony decided to be in a group together. Without much discussion, they chose the United Arab Emirates because they all wanted to visit Abu Dhabi since meeting Kamis. Kamis was very proud that his new friends had decided to learn about his country. Kamis shared numerous things about his home country and his life in the UAE. He spoke about the culture, amazing architecture, camel races, and festivals. He went on to talk about IMG Worlds of Adventure, Ferrari World, and the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque as places he liked to visit. David, Fiona, and Tony were intrigued and began researching about the UAE to contribute to the project. Kamis invited his group to have lunch on Saturday with him, his dad, and grandfather. He thought his grandfather's stories would be interesting for his new friends to hear. He wasn't sure if they would be willing to listen because he or his dad would need to translate. They all agreed, as they could sense it would mean a lot to Kamis. When they entered the house with Kamis and his dad, Grandfather Ali smiled as he saw his family. Both Kamis and his dad greeted his grandfather by kissing his forehead. Tony was impressed by the respect and affection both Kamis and his dad showed Grandfather Ali. Kamis's dad prepared a traditional Emirati lunch. Emirati style felt a lot like a picnic to Tony. Kamis and his dad both translated the stories told by Grandfather Ali. Over lunch, the classmates learned a few Arabic words. They found out that Kamis's family is from a small town in Abu Dhabi called Madinat Zayed. Kamis told him he was the eldest and he had 3 sisters whose names were Mona, Shamsa, and Fatma. As the day went on, the friends were able to see that even though they were from different parts of the world, they had a lot in common. When it was time for the country presentations, they all dressed in traditional Emirati clothing and passed out dates for their classmates to taste. Kamis felt both welcomed and at home in America. He was proud to share the love he had for his country with his entire class. After the presentation, Kamis thanked his group for picking his beloved country. Throughout the school year, Kamis and Tony's friendship grew. At times, Kamis worried if he was a good friend. Tony told him, "Be easy, Kamis. You're a great friend." Kamis told Tony, "You are a great friend too, and you're always welcome to come visit my family and friends in Abu Dhabi." Tony replied, "Inshallah, I can't wait." Discussion questions. How many sisters did Kamis have? What activities did Kamis and Tony enjoy? Did Kamis's friends like visiting his home? How do you know? Did Kamis have the juice? Was he a good football player? How are Tony and Kamis alike and different? Have you ever felt like Kamis? How? When? Have you ever visited a new country? Are you more like Tony or Kamis? How do you embrace the differences in other people? How should you treat people who are different than you? Has there ever been a time when you were treated differently? How did it make you feel? This story, written by Jacqueline Goss and read by Allison Coley. See you next time in Miss Allison's reading room.